Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone's in good spirits. A couple of weeks ago, Ross Goodall, who has a channel, posted a video called Top 10 Debut Singles, and this is my response to his video. These were the first singles that I found when doing a search through my collection, and I'm going to show these in chronological order. First up, we have D.A. Hunt and Greyhound Blues. He was a country blues artist from Mumford, Alabama. It's actually one of the rarest singles, or certainly 45 RPM singles on Sun Records. The only known copies sold on eBay in 2010 for more than $10,000. I'd like to be able to say that this is it, but it's actually a reissue that was put out by Jack White's Third Man record label in 2012. Next, from 1958, we've got the Champs and Tequila, and it's a novelty instrumental based around a Cuban mambo beat. Originally it was the B-side, but a DJ started playing Tequila, and from there it became a worldwide hit. Later singles by the band failed to do much in the charts, I'm afraid, but they did have some interesting later members in the band. So, for example, Glen Campbell was with them for a while, and also Jimmy Seals and Dash Crofts of Seals and Crofts Summer Breeze fame. Next, it's a Stone Cold classic from 1963, and it's Ronettes and Be My Baby. And this was arguably Phil Spector's best production, one of the most memorable drum sounds in pop music, Brian Wilson's favourite record of all time. The multiple brass and strings compete with multiple guitars and keyboards to create a magnificent wall of sound. And over the top you've got Ronnie Spector's New York drawl, which is equal parts attitude and sexiness. You can understand why the Beatles, when they went on tour with the Ronettes in '64, seemed to just adore her. Next up, we've got the Sonics and the Witch, and this came out in 1964. They were garage rock pioneers from the Pacific Northwest. They had their own wall of sound created by having saxophone in their lineup, and they were a big influence on the Stooges and also a lot of the grunge bands that emerged out of the Pacific Northwest in the early 90s. I saw the reformed band in a small club a few years ago, and they were just utterly sublime. Next up, also from 1964, we've got Marianne Faithful and As Tears Go By. It's not the strongest of vocals. I much prefer her cigarette-induced huskiness that she developed in the late 70s with the Broken English album. It's notable, of course, for being an early Jagger Richard song. Their manager, Andrew Luke Oldham, had told them that they needed to start writing their own songs if they were ever going to compete with the Beatles. Blues diehard Richard discovered that he had a knack of writing pretty pop melodies. Gene Pitney, in fact, had already had a top 10 hit with That Girl Belongs to Yesterday, and soon after this would join it in the top 10. Oldham also gets a song credit on here because he made the very Lennon-esque suggestion of changing the title from As Time Goes By to As Tears Go By. Also from 1964, we have The High Numbers with I'm the Face coupled with Zoot Suit. This was recorded in '64 during that brief period when The Who changed their name to The High Numbers at the suggestion of their then manager, Pete Meaden. The lyrics to the songs are by Pete Meaden as well, and it was all in an effort to try and attract an audience amongst the growing number of mods in the UK at that time. With the departure of Pete Meaden, they changed back to The Who and released I Can't Explain in 1965. From 1966, we have the JOHNSTONS and Going Home, and on the B-side, The Travelling People. In Ireland, The Travelling People was the big #1 hit, and it was written by Ewan MacColl. At this point, they were a folk trio, but soon after, Paul Brady would join, and he went on to become a very successful singer-songwriter from Ireland. And as a four-piece with two males and two female vocals, they developed some beautiful harmonies and released at least a couple of albums on Transatlantic in the late 60s. Next up, it's very much a guilty pleasure. It's Chirpy, Chirpy, Cheep, Cheep by Middle of the Road, and this came out in 1971. Scottish bubblegum pop band. This was a massive #1 hit here in the UK and across most of Europe, and they were an influence on ABBA in their bubblegum pop phase, because I've always thought that Soli Soli, their follow-up hit to this, is very similar to Honey Honey by ABBA. Right, moving on to Australian proto-punk, and it's the Burn My Eye EP by Radio Birdman. Their EP was recorded at Trafalgar Studios in Sydney. All the songs were either written or co-written by Dennis Tech, who originally came from Ann Arbor in Michigan. They would go on to be signed to Sire Records. This is their first independently produced EP, which they sold at gigs. And from 1978 we have Joe Jackson, Is She Really Going Out With Him? And this was a supremely catchy debut single, which got Jackson lumped in with the so-called angry young songwriters, most notably Elvis Costello. But there's a lot of humour in his lyrics, and he would also go on to show off his varied talents on later releases, including forays into classical music and jazz music. Right, that's the 10 singles that I've chosen. So don't forget to go check out Ross Goodall's channel. He's got far more subscribers than me. He's been going quite a while, and I really like the fact that he does quite detailed album reviews as well. So okay, I'll see you again very soon.